Hey everybody, welcome to the nightly vid, and in tonight's vid we got some simultaneous breaks to take a look at, and it was the Fed, so the whole market's going to look relatively the same, and obviously good volatility, and this is something that we need to talk about as far as intraday continuity is concerned. So the first thing is SPY today opens and chops around in the morning, so there wasn't really much going on the SPY, but on Wednesdays we do have energy numbers. We didn't talk too much about that yesterday, but this morning, second 60 of the day, the energy numbers come out. It's every single Wednesday. And this is a trade we look for. So similar to the simultaneous breaks on indexes, we look for it in the energies. So second 60 of the day tells us we should be looking at 30-minute and 60-minute actionable signals. So the XLE at that point was just a 2 down 30. The XOP was an inside 30 right at the lows here, below that. And the OIH was a 3-130, and you'll see below that. So what we're looking for was the next two. And since all the energies were 2 down days, we expected to the downside. And you'll see here, the other thing we noticed was the strat site. At the beginning of the month, we want to know who's taking last month's lows, who's taking last month's highs. So in force on the month, you'll see this. Most things are 2 down. There is some 2 ups in there. Now, as far as the 2 down names are concerned, it's mostly energies. So if we sort by sector, you can see this. We have 8 energy names taking last month's lows. So that's a simultaneous monthly break, right? And what we look to then do is confirm that, because we want to confirm what we know to be true if we're trading in the same direction as the higher time frames. And this inside 30 with the energy numbers on the flip does that for us. So what we went and did was I personally took MRO under 26.48 and then puke down into here. And the 2230s here prior to the Fed, or when the Fed started talking, was when we covered some of that. But we wanted to leave some, ideally, because look at these days. They sold and then came back the next day to sell more. So we want to see if that keeps happening tomorrow. And when the Fed happened, these didn't recover at all. You'll notice they did not take the morning highs out. So there is also going to be Halliburton. You'll see this. It was not an inside 30, but it was a simultaneous break, 3-2. 60 continuation below that. There's also COP, which was not quite as weak as the rest of the energies, but you'll see that simultaneous break 30, and then they had the rev strat into the lows, and then with the Fed came back up, you go to APA right here, inside 30, boom, killed down into the lows, and we go to PSX. Was not an inside 30, but it was mentioned by a member because it was a 3-2 month to the downside. So there's a 3-260 in there, and also dropped, a couple bucks, and then 2-2s back against you on the 60. So that was the first thing we were looking to do, and it was the most evidenced trade that we had in the morning. The other thing that we tried to do was some shorts in the semis, which NXPI did that. Rev stratted with the 60s, came back, stopped out the morning guys, so it wasn't much of a win there. For those that paid attention to last night's vid, for the gappers, you had AMD, which on the 30 gave you the inside 30 down break, similar to those energy names, and puked for a good few bucks. You'll see 146 down into the 142s, and then the 2-2 against at 144-ish, 143.8. If we go to NVIDIA, a lot of people were looking at the rev strat the other day here, and we go to the daily. You'll see the 1-2-2 rev strat starts as a gap down, the 2 down 30s, and then an inside 30 measured move. But most people traded this stuff in the morning. If we go in there on the lower time frames, there was an inside 5er in there to get it going into the daily magnitude down here. So some stuff in there in the morning. As far as the afternoon is concerned with the Fed, which is the most important part, if you're simply a 60 guy, which personally I did not take this trade long off the 60 basis, but you'll see the inside bar 60. So when the Fed starts speaking up in here, it's a 60 inside up, taking out all the morning guys. So anyone that's short in the morning, they had to start getting out. That also negated the day, and what we would have preferred was the 1-2-2 on the flip. And you can see they tried to do that, they just didn't. So that was just a loser as far as we're concerned. There were some 5ers in there to take this out, it just didn't work. But this 60 on SPY broke with the inside 60 Qs, so that was a simultaneous 60 reversal. And once again, I just didn't trust it as much. I was waiting for the second 60 to open on the Fed, so I didn't get to participate on those 60 breaks. If we go to the IBM, You'll see third inside 60, simultaneous break, and then boom, off to the races. And Dow Jones, which was stronger because it was already pretty much green on the day at that point. And then the 2260 gave the outside day. And then as far as how we were able to capture some of that here. So we had 3-1-5er that was forming in here. They were chopping it around. And notice this is that second 60 flip after the Fed. So we wanted to see it 3-2 or 3-1-2 down, ideally. That would have been ideal for the short. Did not happen, so it just wasn't something we could do. 3-2 hammer and force here. We could use that to go outside day Dow Jones for a couple bucks. And then SPY also had the 3-2 hammer here, 503, goes into 508, and you'll see the first fiver against was up in here, 322. There's a slight triangle out here at 506, but you can see $3 plus or minus maybe $1, depending on where you got an exit, and then they came back in. Qs also notice the 225er hammer simultaneous break with all the other fivers. Goes 424 to 429. Did not give us the outside day. They were too weak to do it. And same thing. You see the fiver reversed right here, the first one against at 428. So really simple intraday stuff with that. And I don't think we saw IDBM. IDBM also did that 325er. So it's a simultaneous break on the 5-minute basis, which is still algorithmic. You can look for that. And the 225 against up here. So as far as the shorts, we saw a simultaneous 2-2. But it was conflicted at this point because the 60 was still green, 1330 to 1415. The next 60 opens here. So we said it went 2-2. IDBM was the weakest one to start doing that. And then we saw a simultaneous break again, 15. Dow Jones, SPY, and QQQ. And notice all these 15ers reversed here at 428.11. So at that point, they're no longer going up. Now, the break that we saw was the 30. And you'll see this. So the 2230, and notice, this is something you want to see, intraday continuity. Right here, the 1530-60, they are confirming each other. That is full time frame continuity on an intraday basis. When the market is really volatile, jumping around where each 60 is the size of a daily candle, you want the intraday continuity because this is similar to like if you were trading many weeks ago in the Qs back up in this stuff. You can see the Qs weekly range. It's like plus or minus $5. Maybe there's a $10 range in there. If we look at the range from this whole range here is 8. So like that's pretty much a weekly move from many weeks ago in 30 minutes. So when that happens, you have to drop time frames. Now, when the intraday continuity flipped here, that was a full period of control. When it changed here on the 15, you had a period of control. The 15 and 30 conflicted with the 60. Now when this broke, Qs did it, 2230. SPY did it, 2230. Dow Jones did it, 2230. And IDBM did it, 2230. So you had simultaneous 60s, simultaneous 5ers, simultaneous 15s, and simultaneous 30s. And hopefully you can see they nailed all of it, right? So there might have been a loser in there, depending on how you're playing it. But if you're just playing 2-2 reversals and the 2-2 5ers, which some of these were 3-2s, didn't have a bad time today. Now, as far as when we're looking at this, when this opens dead stuck inside 60, that's something we take note of. And I did mention that. When the flip occurred, we're like, okay, this is going to be really difficult to get out of. But we do have a simultaneous break 30. So while that was in force, what we also noticed was confirming signals. So IDBM was actually too weak to make a new signal. But if we go to SPY here, we saw this. So it was inside 60 at this point. It went inside bar and did break up. And at that point, you're like, okay, if you're trading this, you want to start covering down in here because we don't know if it's going to stay inside 60 or not. Then once the new 5 opens and went red, we're like, okay, now if they're going to really take this out and puke, you got to take this out. All 3 of these guys, anyone trying to buy the dip in here, putting their stop at these lows, under 502.62, and you got to stay out because if that makes the new low here and does not stay out, it's going to come back in. We're still in inside 60. Now, when that occurred, you'll see this. They broke it. They did not make the new low. They spiked up slightly, made the new low, and then gone. So right away they're going. At most, 40 cents of drawdown, which is not much when the volatility is this big. So really simple stuff. And also you can just re-enter that. If you're a stop out guy and you're really tight, re-enter when that breaks and you get another $2 of range. 502.62 down into 500 at the close for the cover. So There's a lot of good stuff in there. As far as myself, I really wish I just would have done better trading the 60 up prior to the Fed and trusted it a little bit more. But that 30 and the 15 stuff did give us some really good action in the afternoon to play off of. Now, one thing I did not do quite as well was individual stocks. We're pretty much just watching the futures because you got better option spreads and you got the 0 DTE, so people can do that if they'd like. But as far as what you want to be looking for when the market does this, since everything was a 2 down on the day at that point for the most part, the weaker names will be the ones that fail to take the morning highs. So something like AVGO, you'll see this. Fails to take the morning highs. So too weak to make new highs, which means if things reverse, this will be weak enough to hopefully take out the lows. So when we're looking at this, first you get a 3. That's a broadening formation. They poke down, selling down, and then they buy up. Then they poke up and go red into that 3. Now that's a potential 3 of the 3 because they failed the highs, they bought up. Now they're trying to sell down. And then when the 2215s, Momo Shooter 15, all that stuff happens, you can look to take the other side out. And we also saw some of that in like MU, which notice 2215s, yeah, it works, just not weak enough to take the lows out intraday. We go to Marvel, you'll see similar stuff. So they sell down, they buy up. Here's your broadening formation. 2 up, 2 down reversal, back into it. Just not weak enough to take out the morning lows because it took the morning highs out. So that's something that's good to know about as far as identifying weakness goes. And if you go to something like SMH, similarly, there's your 3, 2 up, 2 down, back into the 3. And then they take both sides of the range out because that's what price does. So now, as far as we're concerned going into tomorrow, everything's going to look like the futures because when the futures start doing crazy stuff, either really big uptrends like this with SPY or jumping around really crazily, everything is normally going to get caught up in the futures is what we say. And they're all going to look very similar. So going into tomorrow, what we want to know is like who's taking yesterday's highs, who's taking yesterday's lows. That's what we want to know. And there's not many hammers into today. Most things will just look like the SPY or Qs. So what's the next 2? What will that negate creator do? Or do we go an inside day? Because it jumps around a lot, everyone gets excited, and then it goes inside and kills everyone, right? So that's something we'll want to know about. But if it goes shooter down, what we're going to look to do is take this out, and this out, all in one go. So 499 to 93.86. Qs, similarly, if they can take this out, we want to take all these guys out in one go, ideally, because it's an actionable shooter signal. And what that means is when that triggers, it should just go, and we want to see a simultaneous break. Dow Jones was a 3. So if that goes 3-2 tomorrow, that could puke really badly. And you look to take out all these guys in one go since they're clustered together. IWM, you got this big 3, same thing. Can we go and take all these guys out in one go? And we just need to see them all simultaneously break 2 down tomorrow if that's going to be the case. But that's going to be your analysis as far as we're concerned. And as far as the gappers went today, there was also some stuff on there. We saw Starbucks get really killed. They did recover in the afternoon, but that is now a big year in force, so that changes what we know in the big time frames. And we did see some rotation, interestingly enough, in the biotechs, or at least attempts at it. So sadly, we just didn't catch it today, sadly. But they had the 2-2 day in force, so this was one of the few things taking out yesterday's highs. And what does that cause? Short covering, because the market puked the day prior, and this took out the highs, so they have to cover. And they did that in the morning, went inside, and then broke in the afternoon for like a crazy rally in here. But what we see in there is NVAX. You can see inside week up, pivot machine gun. So we still have the rest of the week to go after that. And if we go on the month, could become a rev strat above this. And the other thing is, if you zoom out really far here, you're at the bottom of the big trap. So if COVID's coming around a second time, or whatever bird flu thing they want to get everyone infected with, maybe these things go and do that again. We'll just have to see what their plans are. But if they're going to recover inside week up in force, that's something we'd want to know about. We'll also see Iova doing that simultaneous break, and we'll also see ALT was doing a little bit better on the week, maybe a 2-go-3, but very inside month in that one. So actually remove that from here. But Iova and NVAX, those are really the two big ones we saw moving. And B Bio is a 2 week off the lows. Still an inside month, but coming off the bottom of the try. So you can see here, they take out all these guys, and then we'll see if we're going to get any recovery. Not something that's really actionable that I'm looking at tomorrow in this stuff. Maybe get an inside day, but just something I want to put you guys on and have you guys potentially looking at on your charts if you're not a biotech trader, which I normally am not. So it's also a reminder to myself. Outside of that, you'll have a lot of shooters in like the semiconductors and stuff like that. QCOM will be a gapper tomorrow. So gapping into yesterday's highs, 3.2 above that. And if the market all goes 2 down tomorrow, 3.3 to come back through that stuff. But what we noticed this morning was QCOM, they're just buying it all morning while the rest of the chips are going down. So we're like, do they know something we don't? And then earnings come out and they're up. So they did. If we go to Carvana, that will be a gapper up tomorrow as well. And this is something we tried on Turnaround Tuesday. It just didn't work. We couldn't hold on to that. And now that'll be a hammer month in force going into the recent highs. Go on the year. It's still an inside year up. So these bars outside of that, and then they're trying to recover that. So we'll see what they're doing around 115 at the open. So they'll be well in force on the month and the year at that point, just into recent highs. So we'll see. Outside of that, I don't got too much else for you. Maybe we can take a look, see if there's any 322s or anything. But really, we're just going to focus on the futures. We're going to see who's confirming today's move by going down again and who's negating today's move by going 2 up tomorrow. So that'll be about it. I hope you guys have a great rest of your trading week. I'll see you guys in tomorrow's nightly vid.